Okay, students, in today's lesson, we are going to have a look at sketching quadratic functions on a calculator while also using a calculator to find the important points on the quadratic graph. So to start with, we are going to open up a graph page on our calculator. Now for our example today, we are going to have a look at a quadratic function with the rule x squared minus 2 times x take away 8. Press enter and you should see the quadratic function being sketched on your calculator. Now the first thing I noticed in the graph that's been sketched is I can't see the full graph yet. So there's a few ways we can get over this problem. So we're going to start with clicking the menu option. We are going to go into the window option, which is number 4, and we can just simply zoom out. So we click on zoom out and then press enter, and that should give us the full quadratic graph. So now that I have the full quadratic graph, I'm just going to try and get rid of these numbers so it doesn't get confusing for us. Okay, so now we have a beautiful looking quadratic graph. Now let's have a look at some of the important points that we can see from just investigating the graph. So I can see there are two x-intercepts, we have a y-intercept, and we have a turning point. Now in this case it is a positive quadratic, so which means our turning point becomes the minimum. So let's have a go at how we're going to find the coordinates of these points on our calculators. So again, I'm going to go into menu. This time I'm going into number 5, which is trace, and I'm going to select graph trace. So menu, number 5, followed by number 1. So once I do that, you would notice on the screen that we get a cross with a circle. And that's the tool we're going to keep moving to the left and right to work out the different points. So as I moved through the graph and I get to the y-intercept, you would notice on the graph or on your calculator that it actually says it's our y-intercept. So I can see the coordinates of our y-intercept is 0 and minus 8. Now if you want to store that coordinates, we just have to press enter and the calculator stores those coordinates. Now I'm going to keep going to my left to work out my x-intercept. Now x-intercept, the other word for the x-intercept is called the zeros of the function. I can see the coordinates are minus 2 and 0. If I want the calculator to store this coordinate, I'm just going to press enter. Now I'm going to come back because I still have to work out my turning point as well as the other x-intercept. So we go through our y-intercept and then we reach our minimum point, which becomes our turning point for the quadratic function. Again, I'm going to press enter, which will store the coordinates of the turning point. Keep going further to my right, and that helps me reach my second x-intercept, or the second 0 for the function. So I press enter again. Now I've got all the important points that I need in my quadratic function. So now we can just press the escape button on our calculators, which means we can get rid of the trace function. Now sometimes you would notice that the coordinates are sitting on top of each other. So if you scroll using your mouse on the middle of the calculator, you should get this hand symbol. And once you get this hand symbol, click on your mouse and that'll help it grab, and then you can move it across. So that's my turning point. That is my y-intercept. And those are my two zeros for the function. Let's have a look at another quadratic function. So I'm just going to start with a new page. So Control DOC should give us a new page. We're going to start with a quadratic graph. So this time let's do a negative quadratic, for instance. Say I have negative x squared plus 9, for instance. So again, we have the same problem. We can't see the graph completely, so I'm going to go into window and then zoom out. Now I can see the full quadratic graph. I can see that we have the two x-intercepts and the y-intercept, which in this case also becomes the turning point for the graph. So we're going to menu again, trace, graph trace. Again, we get the cross with the circle. We'll keep moving to the left to get our first 0. I'm going to press enter to store the coordinates. Come back up to our y-intercept, which is 0 and 9. And then keep going to my second 0, which is positive 3 and 0. So again, we press the escape to get rid of the graph trace. I can clearly see the 3 important points for this quadratic function. Now, obviously, this is a negative quadratic, which means a turning point is going to be a maximum. That's it from me today. You have a lovely day.